Morning, everybody. Today I'm going to be presenting to you MPA-ESP, also known as the San Francisco Bay Restoration Act. Before I begin, I would like to thank my output team, Stephen, Aaron, and Daniela, as well as the whole restaurant team for the support of this output. I would also like to give my special thanks to Professor Absent for the support of this output and also during the entire semester. To preview what we will cover today, I would like to talk to you about the agenda. I will start by talking about the importance of the Bay, then I will talk about the environmental problems. I will try to describe the legislative history. I will talk about the environmental solutions. I will go through a case study, talk about the controversies, and then I will talk about measuring success to talk about this. Why is the San Francisco Bay important? We all know the San Francisco Bay for its impressive monuments such as the Golden Gate Bridge. It is also important to notice that this region is very economically advanced, especially in terms of GDP, making it the fourth largest economy in the US. When we dive deeper, we realize that this economic advancement was caused by the migration of immigrants that have the same potential in the region. As a result, they created a hub of diverse economic sectors such as technology, finance, industrial facilities, shipping, and agriculture. Despite this economic advancement, we have seen a degradation of its ecological resources, especially the estuaries. To define an estuary, we are going to notice that an estuary is a location where waters of different properties connect and then they give home like to diverse plants and animal species. Estuaries are providing substantial ecosystem services to humans. So with all being said, why would a region like the San Francisco Bay not protect its natural resources? Before I answer this question, I would like to go through the environmental problems that are encountered at the Bay so that I can explain to you what led to these problems as well. Like I noted before, it was the migration of people that were looking to settle at the San Francisco Bay that created the ecological degradation. As the human population increased, it was crucial for people to accommodate their needs. As a result, they started to destroy the natural habitat and then creating ecological problems that can be summarized as habitat destruction, urban pollutants, sewage spill, disproportionate community impacts as well. By the end, it was crucial for the authorities to find a way to protect their natural habitat. And that's where we come to the San Francisco Bay Restoration Act. There have been many other legislations that were targeting ecological restoration. But the Federal Water Pollution Control Act of 1948 was the first of its kind to actually tackle water pollution. Afterwards came the Clean Water Act of 1972. That was one huge improvement of the Federal Water Pollution Control Act because it was addressing water pollutants and contaminants in water in a more substantial way. Afterwards, priority changed and it was needed to actually tackle ecological degradation. That's why in 2021, we had the San Francisco Bay Restoration Act that was introduced by Nancy Pelosi. The San Francisco Bay Restoration Act is focusing on establishing a Bay Program Office that would allocate funding to priority projects that will tackle ecological restoration. What are the solutions that are presented by the bill? The solution can be summarized based on water pollution, habitat loss, invasive species, and climate change. The bill is trying to allocate funding in order to fight water pollution because we have been seeing that there was contaminants that were polluting water at the Bay. Habitat loss is planned to be tackled by providing funding in technology that would help to restore the habitat. Invasive species are also a problem. That's why the bill is providing funding for proper technology that will eliminate the invasive species and make the native species come back. Climate change is the one that makes everything worse. So it is crucial for the Bay to actually provide funding so we can invest in technologies that are going to help us prepare for the natural disaster that can come from climate change. Let's look at this case study. It is the Chesapeake Bay Restoration Program. As you know, the Chesapeake Bay is one of the largest estuaries in the East Coast by the Mid-Atlantic region. That specific region does not necessarily have like the same problems as the San Francisco Bay because it wasn't really polluted because there were many people that were coming there. It was just that the natural resources were so appealing to other people that overexploitation of these natural resources created some environmental problems. An example of overexploitation was agricultural runoff and also too much fishing that were actually limiting the biodiversity at that area. So in 1979, Congress decided to actually enact the first type of legislation that was targeting restoration of this specific area. As a result, we have seen some things that did not work, but most of it worked because there were proper communication with the stakeholders. And it was also one example that what we're trying to do with the San Francisco Bay is not something new. It has been done in the past. Maybe it was not perfect, but providing funding to the right stakeholders can actually help to improve the San Francisco Bay Restoration Act. Now let's talk about controversy. The bill, people think that the bill is not perfect because the solutions can also create some other problems. When it comes to water pollution, we are afraid that the technology used to actually fight the contaminants is going to pollute other neighboring ecosystems. When it comes to wetland restoration or tackling habitat loss, we also think that since we don't know what nature is going to respond to biological and physical control, we are afraid that also we are going to have to spend more, and also that it is going to pollute other neighboring. Now, when it comes to collaboration with stakeholders, we are afraid that there's going to be the issue of diversity and equity. It's going to be diversity and equity issue that will arise. And also, one thing that is very important is that the San Francisco Bay is attracting tourists all over the world. So all of these efforts might lead to disruption in social economic activity and also slow the economy in the long run. But still, the bill is actually defending itself by presenting some indicators of success. When it comes to water quality remediation, we are focusing on water quality standards to actually make sure that this bill is working. When it comes to habitat restoration, it is planned to have some type of report that actually shows that visually the wetland has been restored. Now, when it comes to invasive species, or the biggest indicator of success is going to be the introduction of native species. In terms of climate change, one of the main indicators of success is going to be readiness to adapt to any type of natural disaster that is going to arise from climate change. One of them is flooding. Now, when it comes to collaboration with different stakeholders, it is crucial to note that the bill is trying to incorporate the underrepresented groups in restoration efforts. Most of these measuring success activity has actually been following the input, process, output, and outcome framework. But our main thing about the San Francisco Bay Restoration Act is to actually ensure an equitable restoration of the bay. Thank you so much for listening to me. Next semester, we are going to talk about the implementation of this specific bill. I will be more than happy to answer your questions.
Such an inquisitive group. Okay, good.
Great presentation. When you were speaking about the case study of the Chesapeake Bay restoration, you said that it has a lot of applicability with the San Francisco Bay restoration, but that it wasn't perfect. What are some of the things that were sort of learned through the Chesapeake Bay restoration that can be improved upon with the San Francisco Bay restoration?
Well, some of the things that were learned from that was that when we actually use methods to reduce contaminants, that can actually work to slow, for example, the amount of nitrogen that we like introduce. But if someone in the team knows more about that, it would be good like to actually talk about it.
Hi, Hadja, great presentation. Staying on the case study, I want to ask what the comparison is between providing employment for the San Francisco Bay and what resources were available for restoration.
Well, when when it comes to the Chesapeake Bay, the first thing that you have to notice that, like I said before, it wasn't really that the Chesapeake Bay was as populated as the San Francisco Bay. Most of the problems were caused by, for example, agricultural runoff that was polluting the water over there. And the whole focus was to actually make sure that the biodiversity is restored in there. What the San Francisco Bay is going to tackle, like water pollution, habitat loss, and invasive species, the Chesapeake Bay was just trying to make sure that all of this biodiversity was actually restored.
And I think, Jasmine, to your specific question about the funding, Chesapeake Bay has received $450 million since its inception in federal funding, and this bill allocates about $1 million for San Francisco Bay, so it's much less. San Francisco Bay is a bit smaller, but it's still, comparatively speaking, a lot less than what it's currently been funded for Chesapeake Bay.
Yeah, when you were laying out the controversies, you mentioned that there might be an impact on economic development. And when I think of the Bay Area, I think of Google, right? Like, they're not a company that's using the Bay as a resource. So can you speak to like some specific examples of how these practices might impact businesses or the economy?
Sure. As you know, when it comes to habitat, there are some people that are coming to visit the San Francisco Bay because what I did not mention in the presentation was that it wasn't like diverse species, and some people are just coming to visit and try to take advantage of all this natural world. So I would say that one of the main examples that would actually like impact the economy, I think this would be tourism, because it's like you're doing restoration efforts, you're going to be proposing all of these things, and if people do not come, there is going to be some type of impact.
Very good. Thank you.